So, welcome to Northern Powerhouses, our business success stories series of interviews, where we discuss with local business leaders their backgrounds, their successes, their challenges, and what's really driving them forwards. And this afternoon, I'm delighted to have with us Celia McKeon, who's Chief Executive Officer at Two Ridings Community Foundation. So, Celia, thank you so much for spending a bit of time with us. And if you'd like to introduce yourself, Two Ridings, what you do, how you help people, that would be wonderful.
Sure. Now, thank you very much for the invitation, Chris. It's a
You're
pleasure to be
welcome.
here.
You're welcome.
So Two Ridings Community Foundation is a regional charity based in York, but working across North and East Yorkshire. And our purpose is to support people in their communities to undertake the kinds of activities that make life better. For those around them. So we are stewarding funds on behalf of many different donors. So they might be uh, local businesses, they might be county councils, private individuals and families, national trusts and foundations. So we receive funds from lots of different donors, and then our particular expertise is delivering community-focused grant programs. So making those funds available to groups to apply for so that they can do the work that they do, make the magic that they make, which is enabling vibrant community action to happen all around our region, whether it's in cities or villages or towns in the countryside. Everywhere around this place, there are people doing amazing things to improve the quality of life for those around them. That's who we're here for.
Love it, absolutely love it. So, would it be okay to sort of, is there a couple of examples you've got either currently or ones looking back that you're very proud of?
Of the work that we support.
Yes.
So we make about 500 grants every year to groups
Wow.
across the
Wow.
region. So
Goodness.
it's really difficult to
That's
choose,
okay.
if you can imagine. But just to give, some
Just a
examples.
flavour of, yeah, some of the things you
Yeah,
do.
sure. So let me think. One that comes to the top of my mind would be there's a group called Dancing for Wellbeing in Harrogate, which creates a space where older people who might be suffering from isolation or loneliness can come together and move to music in a supportive environment where they make friendships, build connections, and experience joy. Or
Wonderful.
we are supporting community fridges, so where people can come and get access to fresh food
Nice.
in situations where they might be really struggling to make ends meet. Community choirs where people come and sing together. There's all sorts of activities ranging from supporting people really in crisis
Yeah.
to creating those moments when people can celebrate life together.
Lovely. What a great thing. I think I mean, community just in general is so important, isn't it? We're naturally social animals, and just and I'm guessing, I certainly believe that obviously COVID and lockdown had a big impact. I think everyone's mental health dropped. It's just obviously some people will have dropped into probably danger zone. I know mine dropped. Um, so just anything that brings people together, it's got to be an amazing thing.
Absolutely, but it's also not something that happens automatically.
No.
Community is created when people have that intention
Yes.
and when they set out to create a space where people feel welcome, regardless of their background, where people can bring the challenges that they're experiencing in their lives and get a listening ear, or where people can come and join in an activity that makes them feel alive and connected. So it takes that intention behind
Yes.
it, but it also takes, what we see is it also takes a lot of organizing.
Yes.
Because you don't get very far before you need a bit of money, and then you need a bank account, and then you need somewhere to meet, and then you need how to
Yes.
keep the lights on, or how
Yes.
to fund the service that you're offering to people. And so there's a whole load of work that goes into
Brilliant.
making community possible. And there are thousands of amazing people across our region who give their time, whether as
Yeah.
part of their jobs or in their evenings, to make that experience available. And I think it's absolutely crucial, particularly in the current context, that that work is supported because life is difficult for a lot of people at
Yeah.
the moment, and the world is a scary place.
Yes.
And creating places of safety and joy and inclusion, I think matters now more than ever.
Agreed. Completely agree. Wonderful. So, if we could probably take a bit of a look back to start with, Celia, if you could tell us a little bit more about your background, how you got into business, why this particular organisation for you?
Yeah, sure. So, like a lot of people in this sort of area of work, there isn't like necessarily an obvious career path to follow.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
So, so I started out actually, I went to, so I've always cared about people and what brings us together and what divides us and what's important in those spaces. And
Yes.
I started out as a volunteer working in Croatia in a town that had been on the front line during the war,
Wow.
which had happened the year before. So that was 1996. I was there. Um, I started out volunteering there, yeah, learning about what builds community in a divided society where there's
Yes.
been a lot of violence and trauma.
Yep.
Spent 3 years living in both Croatia and then Bosnia. And then I moved back to the UK and worked for a long time, still in the world of peace building. So what that meant for a long time was traveling around the world and documenting processes of ending war through dialogue and negotiation and talking to all the people who were involved, different parts of society in making that transition or in trying to make that
Yes.
transition. Often it's really, really difficult. So I did that for a long time until I had children. Then I didn't, yeah, I decided that work wasn't compatible for me with being a mum.
Yep.
And that was the point at which I got into the world of philanthropy or grant
Yep.
making.
Yep.
I worked for Joseph Rowntree Charitable Trust,
Yep.
managing programs related to peace and peace building, and then moved to Two Ridings Community Foundation to really focus on, enabling that community action that brings people together in the part of the world that, I was born and brought up in and that I'm absolutely, passionate about.
Yes.
So that's kind of been my journey, but it's always been that the thread has always been about what brings people together, despite all the differences that we might have and all
Yep.
the disagreements. How can we build relationships in that context and
Wow.
celebrate all that life has to offer?
Brilliant. Love it. Absolutely love it. And with two riding specifically, but by always look further back than that. What are some of the key challenges you've had to overcome?
Oh, there's loads. So I think for all organizations working in the voluntary sector, so charities, social enterprises, um, the number one challenge is always managing to make ends meet financially, I
Yep.
think. Because there's always more work to do than there's money available. That's the
Yep.
truth of the matter. And you can always see potential for more if only you could resource it.
Yes.
So I think that's always top of the list. It's the most important material challenge, probably. It's not necessarily always a strategic challenge. But that's one that people are, and especially people are grappling with now, and
Yes.
people working at grassroots in communities. There was quite a lot of money, that came in the context of COVID. I think people really recognized the importance of what happens in community and how and the importance of community during that period. And a lot of money went into the sector. And then obviously that period has passed now. The public purse is, very stretched, and
Yes.
the kinds of um, sort of emotional, physical, mental challenges that were exposed by COVID are still there.
Yep.
But the resource to respond to them isn't.
Yep.
And increasingly, what we see is a lot of people who are in crisis and who are really struggling to find their way in life at the moment being referred to community organisations for support, often on quite complex matters. But the resource to provide that support, the financial resource to provide that support, is not available. And so
Yep.
community organisations are dealing with increasingly challenging circumstances, but in it with very restricted means. So I think that's a kind of fundamental challenge that we're all grappling with. Alongside, that the sort of wider picture of the world around us where there is a lot of stress and
Yeah.
division and tension, and when people are being encouraged to pull apart rather than together. So I
Yes.
think kind of finding ways to continue to recognize what unites us
Yes.
meaningfully and genuinely
Yeah.
is important and not always easy.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I can totally see that. And yeah, what is obviously there's challenge, whether it's from the challenges or from success or from success I know you've had. What are some of the keys to building an organization like yours? What how do you continue to keep to build the success that you've had historically?
So, well, the first thing I want to say is, I think it's the work of many people over
Yep.
many years. It's never about one person.
Yep.
And I think the more I do this work, the more I recognize that, the more ambitious you want to be, the more humble you need to be about the
Yep.
limits of what you can do on your own.
Yep.
But I want to massively pay tribute to my predecessor in this role, Jan Garrell, and a number of other colleagues and trustees whose tenacity and vision and determination have, brought the organisation, a long way on its
Yep.
journey. So it's a real privilege for me to be in the role that I'm in, coming into our 25th anniversary
Yep.
and being able to build on the foundations that they created. But I think it is about vision, first and foremost, about being clear, what is
Yes.
the change that you want to make and why? And then it's about, the usual things like strategy, tenacity,
Yeah.
luck, resource.
Absolutely.
And fundamentally in this field, it's about building relationships. I mean,
Yeah.
I think it is everywhere, isn't it?
Yes.
But that's at the heart of why we are here, and it has to be at the heart of our practice as well,
Yes.
Like what we want to enable in the world, we also have to that has to be part of our culture and
Yeah.
our way of working day to day as well.
Absolutely. That makes perfect sense. And I think we're a business coaching organisation. I'm keen to know who the best coaches you've worked with, whether that's business, sport, life in general. Who's had the biggest impact on you?
Oof. Um, so I think there's been lots of people at different times, and they wouldn't have all called themselves a coach,
No.
but actually what they did was often coaching.
Yes.
Um, so, it's those conversations that you have with people where they reflect something back to you
Yep.
or ask you a question that makes you think in a way that you haven't thought before.
Yep. Brilliant.
And I've been incredibly fortunate over the years to have had, you know, some really inspiring managers and colleagues that I've worked with who've done that for me. Maybe sometimes it's just been a one-off conversation, and sometimes it's been over a period of time. And I've also had um, coaches who have brought coaching expertise
Yeah.
and where we've had a structured program of
Yes.
engagement and had two different coaches, and they've both been really important to my own growth and development
Brilliant.
in quite distinct ways.
Yes.
I'm very grateful for that.
Brilliant. And whether it's from coaches, people who've been around, or just other areas, do you have any favourite quotes or sayings about life, business, success in general? Is there things you catch yourself saying a lot?
Yeah, so one of the people who wouldn't have described herself as a coach, but definitely played that role for me
Yep.
when I came back to the UK from living in Bosnia, a woman called Marion McNaughton, a Quaker woman, and she, as part of our conversations, gave me a bookmark with a quote on it that I keep to this day.
Brilliant.
And the quote is, "Keep what is worth keeping, and with a breath of kindness, blow the rest away." And I find that applicable and important in so many situations.
Yes.
It's about, for me, kind of holding lightly, like what's the essence of
Yes.
what matters here. and recognizing when there might be other parts of that that I can let go of, and I can let go of it gently, you know.
Love it.
So yeah, that's a really important quote for me.
That's no, that's I love that. So just repeat that because I do love the specific words.
Yeah, so it's keep what needs to be, keep what is worth keeping, and with a breath of kindness, blow the rest away.
I really love that. Funnily enough, in Action Coach, my organisation, we have a few rituals, and one is what we call a whoosh, and it's a physical thing. I can't really demonstrate it here, but it's based on a Tai Chi move. But the key
Okay.
thing is part of the process is to we call lock in the learnings and leave everything else
Yeah.
behind, and
Yeah,
it's absolutely
that's
brilliant.
absolutely what this is about, isn't it?
Absolutely, and it just
Yeah.
focuses on what do I want to take from today.
Yeah, yeah,
And often it will be different for each person because they'll be in a different place, different.
yeah.
But the key thing is that letting go,
Yes,
and just letting go
absolutely.
of the stuff that doesn't serve and doesn't help us.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Look,
Easier
absolutely
said
look.
than done.
Yeah, well, it is. There's a great story I was told about. Funny enough, about two Buddhist monks, and it's an old very old story, and they're walking along. There's an older one and a young student, and they're walking, and they come to this river, and I would imagine you're aware Buddhist monks in general shouldn't be touching anybody else, especially women. And they come to this river, and there's an old lady there, and the river's in flood, and she can't cross it. She's too worried about crossing it, and she asks for help, and without a second thought, the old monk picks the lady up and carries her across and places her down, and the young monks there just absolutely perplexed that they're not supposed to touch anybody, especially women, and they walk on and they walk on for 4 or 5 hours, and eventually the young monk says, "Look, I've got to ask you this question. What we it's part of our training is we're not allowed to touch people, but you just picked up that lady and took her across." And the monk said, I get it right, the old monk said, he said, I put that lady down when I got across the river, but you're still carrying her. And I love that in terms of unhelpful thoughts and feelings. It's like we just, and when we can do what you just said and let those
Right.
things that don't help us go with a touch of
Absolutely.
kindness, which I love.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, fabulous. And on the same sort of point of learning, do you have any favourite books or podcasts about success, about life in general that you could recommend?
Yes, I have probably too many. At the
Brilliant.
so a kind of long-standing favorite is On Being by Krista Tippett, who she interviewed. She's an American journalist who interviews beautifully.
Brilliant.
Recently started listening to Martha Beck, who's a very famous,
Yes.
again, US coach. Um, they're the ones at the top of my mind at the moment,
Brilliant.
and I think, yeah, very wise, insightful women who bring a lot of hard-won lessons,
Yes.
which I think land land in a different way.
Yes. It's interesting having this conversation because we were talking about especially women and you mentioned the touch of kindness. Now there's an interesting book by a lady called Kim Scott called Radical Candor.
Oh
And
yeah.
that's very much about saying what needs to be said,
Hmm.
but absolutely with a duty of care to the person. That's
Yeah.
what radical candor is, as opposed to.
Mhm.
She's got quite complex phrases for other areas, but when you say what you think without caring about the other person, that comes into something aggression. So it's something
Yeah.
not ruinous. That's ruinous empathy. But the key part of the book is we should say what we need to say. But what because one thing she said she was brought up with, which I think is a phrase many people are brought up with, which is if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything.
Mhm.
And I think that is a cultural thing. I think I was probably brought up with that. And yet the whole a big part of a book is saying, well, that's not necessarily helpful if the other person doesn't get the communication. So I guess, the key thing about the breath of kindness is so important in that situation.
Absolutely. And I think what I've learned from working in the context of violence and war
Yes.
and difficult conversations is that discomfort is part of the process. Y- You know,
Yeah.
so kindness matters because discomfort is often present when we're
Yeah.
trying to grapple with disagreement and complexity and tension and polarization.
Yes.
So I think collectively there's a lot of work that we need to do as people on this planet
Yes.
around getting comfortable with our own personal discomfort and understanding when that is helping us learn something,
Yeah.
which doesn't mean we go around harming each other and creating discomfort deliberately. But I think we recognize that we're not always going to agree with each other.
No.
That's part of our extraordinary and magical diversity is that we've got so many different life experiences and perspectives on the world.
Yes.
So if we're not going to always agree with each other, how can we sit with that disagreement? How can we sit with the discomfort that comes up in us when somebody else is saying something that we can't relate to? And I think kindness helps create the possibility for that, for us to each hold that discomfort more easily, um, as does recognizing that discomfort can help us learn.
Yes. I would. Yeah, that makes absolute sense. So if I might just follow this topic then a little bit further, because you mentioned
Mm.
difficult conversations, so they can't be much more difficult than the warring situations.
Mm.
What
Mm.
this is really asking you probably a question that probably would take 3 hours to answer, but what are the key? I mean, you probably identify one or two already, but what are the keys to having those difficult conversations?
Um, so I think there's certain conditions that you need to create for difficult conversations to be possible. I mean, and some of them, they apply very much to an interpersonal interaction as much as they might apply,
100%.
at the context of a government negotiation process.
Yes.
So it's about there's kind of how do you create safety for people to say
Yes.
the things that need to be said?
Yes.
So what are the rules of engagement?
Yep.
So what is it that each person is going to, or each participant is going to need to be able to participate freely and openly in the space that's being created? And who is responsible for that? Is that something that they can manage between themselves, or do you need support and guidance in the form
Yes.
of facilitation or mediation for that to be possible? So I think a set of there's attention that needs to be paid to the set of conditions
Yep.
that are put in place for conversations to happen. And then I think the ability to remember each other as human, uh, first and foremost,
Yes.
is also unlocks so many doors.
Yeah.
Um, and I think is also that the forgetfulness of that is also what shuts down the space for dialogue. So creating opportunities where we can remember our humanity and recognize it in each other, I think opens the potential for understanding
Yeah.
and respect and all of those fundamentals that are then necessary for difficult issues to be put on the table. And then I think a kind of willingness to go beyond the binary and see problems not as, zero-sum games where there's a winner and a loser, but as expressions of that diversity and difficulty and
Yeah.
opportunities to look at solutions that might meet the greatest needs of the greatest number of people. So
Yes.
entering in that spirit rather than, being attached to a very fixed position. Yeah.
Yes.
And then all the support around, negotiation skills that
Yes.
come into more formal processes. So I
Yeah.
think I think some of it's about kind of human qualities and values, and some of it's about the skills to articulate
Yes.
your position and represent your constituency in a way that does justice to that.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. It is that be able to. We've got, especially communication is key because
Yeah.
it's doing that. Well, I mean, we use a little matrix when we talk about negotiation, which is we talk about self-respect, i.e., getting what we want, I want,
Mhm.
and respect for others is
Yeah.
getting what. And the challenge with a lot of negotiation is it is the feeling that the only way I can win is by the other person losing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's that idea that is it okay that we find somewhere where we both win?
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
with some compromise, but
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
both feel we're walking away from that
Yeah.
deal or understanding,
Absolutely.
thinking actually, yeah,
Yeah.
this is as close to what I would, I would think I would could call success as I can get in that
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah.
But it's so easy. And the interesting thing, it's so easy to lose that and actually come back to what we call lose lose, where
Yeah.
the worst thing that happens is we don't find a way forward.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
I guess a war situation is the most obvious one of those. Is that continuation of hostilities is clearly worse for everybody.
Yeah. And I think also in that context, there's usually a huge amount of trauma and loss that is the backdrop or even at the foreground of those conversations and the
Yes,
fear that goes with that. And it's really important yeah, that recognizing that and how that is honored in the process and how that will be handled in the context of whatever might be agreed in the future is also fundamental and really
yes.
difficult a lot of the time.
There are so many different situations going on right now in the world that it's probably best not even to start commenting or discussing those because there's Um, but perhaps going back to your
Yeah,
point that all the people involved are human beings.
absolutely. And the people closest to the issues will always be the ones with the greatest insight into what the solutions are.
Yeah,
So in terms of talking about whatever's happening in the world, yeah, I would always defer to the people who are closest.
great.
Um, and our role, I think, in a lot of cases, if we're outside a process, is to listen and hold the space for those conversations to happen in whatever way that's practical and meaningful.
Yeah, that makes a lot. I mean, that's very wise words. It makes a lot of sense. There's lots of opinions out there at the moment, including mine probably. But
Well,
yeah,
we all have opinions. It's just
yeah.
working out when they're,
Are
that
we
when it's
allowed to?
when
Yeah.
it's useful to share them, right?
That's a good one. Opinion, yeah, it's whether we're allowed to. Yeah, we should be sharing them. Yes, no, I completely agree. Yeah, that's very relevant to a conversation I had this morning, but we'll pass on that. Celia, I'm really keen to know what you've learned about yourself throughout your journey so far.
Oh, oh God, all sorts of things. Still learning. I think that's the exciting thing, isn't it? It's like
Yes,
it's never a finished journey. Um, Oh, I think I've learned I can do hard things. I think we all can if we're given the right support and tools. And I mean, gosh, I've had a lot of privileges. Like I've been, yeah, given opportunities that have um, enabled me to learn a great deal. And I've been supported along the way by people who've been very generous with their wisdom and insight. Um, so that's really helped me learn as I go. I'm trying to think what specifically I've learned. Yeah, that we are all capable of doing things that we don't necessarily expect
yes,
we can. And I think going back to what I was saying earlier, I think sometimes discomfort is part of that process.
yes,
That you go, if you're able to hold the discomfort and work through it, the discomfort for me is often a sign that I'm growing and learning, you know?
yes.
So that's what I try and remember. When something's triggering
Uh,
me or when I'm feeling, annoyed or frustrated by a situation, I'm like, okay, there's something that this is teaching me. What is it?
yeah, absolutely. I'm going to learn something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, my coach talks about we talk a lot about in actually it's the state of perturbation, which sounds a bit
Hmm.
strange, but being
Hmm.
perturbed
Yeah.
is and we say it's actually the start of breaking through. We often say a breakthrough follows a breakup, a break
Hmm.
apart, so
Hmm.
a breaking from where we are
Yeah.
right now. And
Yeah.
and I remember a conversation with my coach a couple of years back, and I was really quite frustrated about a whole bunch of stuff, and he just went, "Brilliant." And I was totally
Mm.
confused. Why?
Yeah.
I was telling how bad
Yeah.
things were, and he said, "Oh, we're about to make a big breakthrough,"
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Well,
I
it was.
loved that.
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast by Martha Beck the other week where she was saying if you're stuck, congratulations, because that is a place that where growth comes from.
Yeah.
You just have to work out how,
Yeah.
that's the challenge. And
a-
felt like,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Brilliant. And so, looking forward to you, what does the future look like for you guys, and what challenges do you think you might face, if any?
Sure. So we are in the 25th year of Two Ridings Community
Wow,
Foundation at
congratulations.
the moment. Next week, we are celebrating our 25th
Brilliant.
anniversary, which we're all really looking forward to. And so we are looking ahead to the next 25 years and trying to imagine and envision, what's life going to be like in communities in our region in 25 years' time? And that's a pretty
Yeah.
impossible question to answer. But I think what we do know, and I'm absolutely convinced of, is whatever the challenges and opportunities are in North and East Yorkshire in 25 years, there will be groups of people in the places where they live who are identifying those needs and who are finding solutions and opportunities in them that make life better for the people around them. I am absolutely convinced that that will be the case, that
Yep.
that work will continue to happen. And that is the spirit that drives us as people, and that, when we're at our best, we can invest in. So our role as a community foundation is to be there to accompany those people over this time through whatever predictable and unpredictable changes there are,
Yep.
to the world around us. That's our job.
Brilliant. It's funny you said it's interesting you said that. So I went to see a guy called Gary Vaynerchuk about 6 months ago. He came to our national conference. He's a very well known marketeer and social media person in the US, sort of 50 million followers, and
Right. Well.
really really well known. And one thing he said, look, I believe at some point in the future, with the enhancement of technology, AI, which can do so much for
Mhm,
us, but
mhm,
in many ways will split us apart and create more isolation. And he was saying AI will ultimately do a lot of the things, the manual tasks that we currently do. But he said,
mm,
I predict that in the future there will be a job of going for a walk with somebody.
mm,
And you know
mm,
what and
mm.
that's what gives me absolute
Yeah,
confidence that communities are going
yeah,
to be really key moving forward, because
yeah,
the more we can get things done for us, the less
yeah,
often we actually have a contact with another human being. And
yeah,
so actively doing that is going to become more and more important. So communities, clubs, these sorts of things
yeah,
and just an opportunity to socialize
yeah.
in different ways is going to be more and more important to human beings, I suspect.
Definitely. I think it's about relationships, isn't it? And I, I
Yes.
think AI can do lots of things, but it can't replicate the quality of human interaction.
Yes.
And in a sense, that's the potential of it, because it frees us up
Yes.
away from sort of some of the manual tasks to
Yep.
invest more in our relationships.
Yes.
But I think that's the promise and the opportunity of it. And that's certainly the way that we're looking at it in our work, is
Yeah.
how can we harness this tool to do some of the, frankly, some of the more boring things,
Yeah.
so that we can spend our time actually being out there and engaging and listening and learning and connecting
Absolutely.
people to opportunities and to each
Brilliant.
other.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. And final question for you, Celia. What would be the best advice you could give an 18-year-old you if you could go back in time and do that?
Um, um, to to do what you enjoy. Like think really carefully about what it is that lights you up.
Yes.
Because I really believe we're at our best when we are doing the work that lights us up. And I think never stop learning. Never stop learning. That's where the excitement is for me. It's in the
Brilliant.
discovery and the fact that that is endless. That's what keeps life exciting and fresh.
Brilliant. Great advice for anybody. Celia, it's been fascinating to
Ah,
talk to you
likewise,
today.
Greg.
Really fascinating. I could talk for a lot longer, but just before we close, for anyone that's watching would like to get in touch with you or Two Ridings, what would be the best way to do that?
Probably via our website, www.tworidingscf.com. and there you can find all our contact information. We're also on all the usual social media channels, but really that's like the front
Mm,
door, and we're happy to pick up the phone, meet for a coffee. It is
brilliant.
ultimately about, yeah, about human connection.
Wonderful. Well, look, it'd be great to swing by another 6, 12 months and just see the, talk more and talk about the projects
Oh,
you're working on. But for now, thank you so much for your time.
thank you very much, Chris. Really enjoyed chatting to you.
Thank you.